As 26 National Football League teams took the field for the start of the 1971 season, their world floated adrift on the winds of change. The catalyst for the game's evolution to its present form has been defense. As modern professional defenses have been redressed and refined, elements of offense have been suppressed. But while stronger defenses have detoured certain scoring lanes, at the same time they have opened new avenues of attack. The teams that best traveled these new highways ultimately achieved the greatest success during the 1971 season. Defense. For every action, a reaction. Every move, a counter move. Possession was no longer 9/10 of the law as modern defenses claimed their right to the ball. How to overcome the swelling success of the new defenses? Several teams clung to the adage that the best offense was indeed a good defense. In mid-Arctic Minnesota, the NFC's leading defense created 61 turnovers and could score nearly as often as their offense. Viking defensemen are so storied that in 1971, Alan Page, number 88, became the first defenseman ever named the league's outstanding player. Viking defense led Minnesota to the playoffs for the 4th consecutive season. Riding an offensive defense, the Atlanta Falcons soared to their first winning season ever. Number 27, Tom Hayes, scored 3 touchdowns, all while playing defense. On consecutive Sundays, Hayes scored with blocked punts and later in the season traveled 60 yards with a fumble. In Houston, safety Ken Houston, number 29, scored 5 times. His 2 interceptions for scores versus San Diego tied an NFL mark, and his 4 in one season and 9 lifetime tallies are NFL records. Defensive genius George Allen was named head coach in Washington. And under his guidance, the Redskin defense finally lent support to its explosive offense. In 1971, the Redskin defense was the league's 4th best, the NFL leader in interceptions, and largely responsible for Washington's first playoff season in 25 years. While Allen built his defense with veterans, new Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia saw a youth movement as the Eagles' last 4 number 1 draft picks are now starters on defense. But a number 3 pick, Bill Bradley, number 28, made the most noise as he led the league in interceptions with 11. With new head coach Ed Kayat and a resurgent defense, the Eagles flew to a 6-2-1 record in their last 9 games. In Baltimore, the league's best defense led the Colts into the playoffs and made their zone defense legend. The zone puts pressure on the linebackers, but Ray May, Mike Curtis, and Ted Hendricks, backed in the secondary by All-Pros Rick Volk and Jerry Logan, make the zone work. The Colt defensive line gave up only 80 yards rushing per game, allowing the Colt linebackers to drop back in the middle range, freeing the secondary to watch for the bomb. With all areas covered, there are plenty of Colts around for a rebound. The Colt zone allowed only 9 touchdown passes in 1971 and was the model that many teams followed. The Baltimore Colts zone defense and its offspring have caused many changes in offensive strategy. The zone was designed to eliminate the quick strike, the long one. Though teams can still explode the bomb, more and more they have had to find new ways of launching it, adding, not detracting from the game's excitement. The big yardage pass play is now the result of the most elementary of athletic contests, the foot race. The big yardage pass play is now the result of Superman effort, where one man overcomes impossible odds. The best way to beat the zone was not to throw into it at all, and 1971 was the year of the running back, as the ball possession gut-running drive returned to the game. In 1971, 5 men cracked the 1,000-yard barrier. In Denver, where the fans were number 1, Floyd Little, number 44, was also number 1 as he gained over 1,100 yards to lead the NFL in rushing. In 1972, Little will be playing for a new head coach, John Ralston, the 4th college coach to enter the NFL since 1970. The first was Tommy Prothro, who in his first season nearly led the Rams to the playoffs. With a bevy of talented runners, the Rams gained nearly 5 yards per rush to lead the NFC. And Willie Ellison, number 33, gained 1,000 yards, getting 1/4 of that in one game. Ellison's 247 yards versus the Saints established a new NFL mark for yards rushing in one game. Another former college coach, Dan Devine, had a 1,000-yard runner in Green Bay. Number 42, John Brockington, became the first rookie running back to gain over 1,000 yards rushing. Brockington's selection as the NFC's Offensive Rookie of the Year was an easy one, for he had led his conference in rushing. In Detroit, Steve Owens, number 36, rocked and socked his way for more than 1,000 yards and helped make the Lions the NFC's leading rushing team. In Cincinnati, there were no 1,000-yard runners, but of those running backs who gained over 500 yards rushing, only Essex Johnson, number 19, averaged over 6 yards a carry. The leading rushing team in the NFL was the Miami Dolphins. Larry Csonka and Jim Kick put them there. Csonka, number 39, gained over 1,000 yards, averaged over 5 yards a carry, and was nearly unstoppable at the goal line. Kick, number 21, is the only man to rank in the top 15 in both receptions and rushing yardage over the past 2 seasons. Miami handkerchief salutes were also for quarterback Bob Griese, the AFC's leading passer and most valuable player. They saluted Paul Warfield, number 42, who led the league with 11 touchdown catches. Miami needed and used all their firepower to overcome the Chiefs in their first-round playoff game. Seven and a half minutes into the second overtime period, Csonka set up a field goal try by Garo Yepremian, the NFL's leading scorer in 1971. Yepremian's 37-yard field goal ended the longest professional football game ever played and sent Miami to the AFC Championship game. In Miami, the Dolphins moved a step closer to the gold at the end of the rainbow by shutting out the Colts and ending their reign as NFL champions. In Detroit, lion power took a different shape. Greg Landry, number 11, became the leading member of the new fraternity of running quarterbacks. In 1971, Landry gained 530 yards to establish an NFL record for yards gained rushing by a quarterback. Pittsburgh's Terry Bradshaw became more valuable to his team by developing as a runner, and he gained more yardage than any quarterback in his conference. Chicago's Bobby Douglas, number 10, averaged over 7 yards per carry, and his running carried the Bears to upsets of Detroit, Dallas, and Washington. In midstream 1970, J.D. Roberts became head coach in New Orleans. In 1971, the Saints drafted Archie Manning. In his first game, Manning's last play touchdown upset the Rams. And 4 weeks later, his 2 scores shocked Super Bowl champion Dallas. A similar story unfolded in New Schaefer Stadium, where John Mazer started his first full season as head coach of the New England Patriots. In 1970, the Patriots won one game and the right to draft Heisman Trophy winner Jim Plunkett. At 6'4", 220 pounds, he was big enough to run, but it was his arm that brought him instant success. In his first game, Plunkett threw 2 touchdown passes and led the Pats to an upset of the Raiders. Then Plunkett and his former college catcher at Stanford, Tiny Randy Vataha, number 18, pulled 2 more shockers. First, they combined for 2 scores in a win over Super Bowl-bound Miami. Then on closing day, they teamed for 2 more touchdowns, including an 88-yarder. Plunkett's 19th touchdown pass, Vataha's 9th touchdown reception, and another incredible upset, this time over the 1970 NFL champion Baltimore Colts. In 1971, the extensive use of the zone defense made it increasingly difficult to set up one-on-one coverage where the odds were with the receiver. Still, several teams found ways to accomplish it. In Kansas City, rookie Elmo Wright, number 17, teamed with longtime big play receiver Otis Taylor, number 89. Facing 2 deep threats, the defense could not key on either, and each man averaged over 20 yards a catch. Taylor was the NFL yardage champ and the only receiver to gain over 1,000 yards. And he and Wright did enough touchdowns celebrating to lead the Chiefs to the AFC West crown. In Oakland, Fred Biletnikoff, number 25, was the NFL's leading pass receiver by using precise patterns that took him to the cracks in the zone. Across the bay in San Francisco, Gene Washington, number 18, was the NFC yardage king and one of pro football's most exciting pass receivers. Washington could get free outside because tight end Ted Kwolek, number 82, kept the defense busy in the middle. In 1971, Kwolek and other tight ends grew to stardom by exploiting the one weakness of the zone defense, the seam between the linebackers and defensive backs. The tight end of the 70s is the man who can catch a ball in a crowd just before the edges of the zone snap shut around him. Some teams were so successful that in Yankee Stadium, Bob Tucker, number 38, became the first tight end to lead his conference in pass reception. Many of his receptions were short pops as the Giants and other teams used the tight end as their clutch first down maker. Though the Lions' Charlie Sanders, number 88, caught just 31 passes, he was the NFL's all-pro tight end. Sanders completely filled the bill as the critical catch receiver. In New Texas Stadium, the Dallas Cowboys had all the new offensive forces, and they parlayed them into a Super Bowl championship. Roger Staubach, number 12, was the NFL's leading passer in 1971, but he was even more valuable because he could run, averaging over 8 yards every time he did. Dallas had 3 fine running backs in Walt Garrison, Calvin Hill, and Dwayne Thomas. Thomas, number 33, led the league in touchdowns by rushing with 11. The Dallas tight end position, split between Billy Truax, number 87, and Mike Ditka, number 89, contributed 45 catches. They opened the long lanes for wide receivers Lance Allworth, number 19, and Bob Hayes, number 22, the NFC's leading touchdown catcher with 8. The eyes of Texas also gazed on one of the league's top defenses. 10-year All-Pro Bob Lilly, number 74, and a ball-hawking supporting cast helped put Dallas in the Super Bowl. With the NFL's best balance of defense and offense, the Cowboys headed for the one thing that had always eluded them, a Super Bowl championship. In quest of their first NFL championship and facing the Miami Dolphins, the Cowboys played a perfect football game. On defense, they stopped Kick and Zonka. They harried Greasy, shut down Warfield, and yielded just 3 points. On offense, the Cowboys used every one of their attack elements. The Dallas runners established a new Super Bowl rushing record. Staubach passed with his league-leading form, hitting wide receiver Allworth for 1 score and tight end Ditka for a second as the Cowboys swamped the Dolphins 24-3. 6 consecutive playoff seasons had proven the Cowboys' ability to remodel and refine. They used that ability to conquer a season of change and were the 1971 National Football League champions.